You may be wondering why I decided to title this video, How to Scale Your Stupid Law Firm. Well, that's actually the number one question I get when I'm consulting with firms all across the country. And as I dig into the inner workings of their operations, what we end up solving are the same headaches over and over again: stupid lead generation, stupid marketing, and stupid training courses for their staff. After working hand in hand with many incredibly successful high-tech companies over the years, I've come across an excellent opportunity to work and assist the legal industry in benefiting from recently available technologies that allow for the optimization, expansion, and ability to streamline law practices. I started off working with a handful of law practices locally and soon realized the greater need to assemble a team of experts in a panoply of different roles, such as business development, marketing, and operations. Combined with several innovative technologies, we've developed a thought-out and result-oriented one-stop shop for law practices nationwide. This book is a summary of techniques and implementations that have helped hundreds of law firms build successful law practices and optimize and expand consistently. Several firms that have adopted these methods have scaled 3x a year, and they're just getting started. I hope this video will be as beneficial for everyone watching as it has been for our network of clients we've partnered with and scaled alongside over the past year. Chapter 1. Practice Challenges. The Attorney's Struggle. My many years of working with a wide variety of practice areas and with law firms of varying sizes has allowed me to detect a multitude of problems that these firms face internally and operationally. However, depending on the size of these firms, these problems were either detrimental to their practice or had an acute impact on the firm. To better break down my step-by-step guide to scaling your law firm, I have categorized law firms as solo practitioners, medium-sized firms, and large firms. Solo practitioners, 1 to 6 staff. The biggest problem solo firms face is increasing the number of clients they retain without spending an absurd amount of money, essentially sampling different lead generation companies. Like everyone else, they want more cases, yet they don't have capital to front and ultimately can't generate cases at a reasonable cost. Because of the lack of budget and proper appropriation of funds, they struggle to grow their practice, and more importantly, they can't find out how to scale while keeping their costs low. They look for alternative ways of getting cases, often resorting to using their social media platforms or getting referrals from large firms across different practice areas. Mostly, referrals become the main source of new cases for these law practices, and since this strategy is almost 100% risk-free, many believe it is the key to becoming the next big law firm. The second problem for solo firms is learning how to manage the business operations and learning how to properly delegate mundane work to others in the firm. The law practice owners are doing everything they know how to. However, due to their lack of experience and education with business management, the firm begins juggling multiple things at a time and often dropping the ball. They look at large law firms and ask, how are they doing it? What is their marketing budget and strategy? How can they juggle handling so many cases and still manage to make all this money? The solo practitioners think there's some sort of magic recipe that allows firms to grow. In fact, there is no magic recipe. It's a mix of a lot of time invested, risk management, and simultaneous hard work. Not to mention that these law firms are willing to try different management methods, which eventually leads to a large amount of case settlements every year. Additionally, they begin investing some of the income back into the business, rather than just hiring more staff or spending unreasonable amounts on marketing without any promise of improvement on the practice management infrastructure fundamentals. Solo practitioner firms search for other attorneys that practice in the same area, went to the same school, operate in the same state, yet they're making $300,000 a month, while the solo practitioner is only making $20,000 a month, and they don't understand why. Medium-sized law practices, 620 staff. The biggest problem that medium-sized law firms face is growth. How do they get to the next level? They look at other large firms and wonder, how can I get that big? When you look closely, you find that the problem is a lack of structure and infrastructure. The law practice owner has hired 10 or 15 people, and each person is fulfilling their role. However, they lack structure. The job responsibilities are not defined, and the workflow is not set up. They also lack the required technology to grow. Basically, they need a complete remodeling of the firm's operational structure. They need to make sure they have allocated their resources in the right place. Otherwise, it leads to various degrees of confusion. For example, the attorneys are not focusing on practicing the law, the case managers are not focused on building the value of the case, and the list goes on. Rather than having everyone in the law firm focus on one key area, we see the flip side of that, where the attorney, the case manager, and law practice owner all do a little bit of intake, a little bit of case management, and a little bit of document collection. There isn't a standard process, and there are no performance metrics, which leads the law practice owner to be oblivious to how many cases the firm is signing up, selling, or referring. They don't know which questions to ask to assist in making management or growth decisions. They don't know the numbers that drive the firm, and they don't know what to do next. They often have no facts nor data in which to base their decisions on. Everyone in the firm is working hard, everybody is busy, yet there is no steady growth. It's unclear what the profitability of the firm is because there is no financial analysis. The financial information about the firm is limited to bookkeeping. It's almost like they're balancing a checkbook and not running a law firm operation. Instead of having proactive operations, they are reactive. If money is coming in, it must have been a good month and they're happy that they are doing well, but if there is no money coming in, it's been a bad month and suddenly the staff or lead generation company is to blame. The real problem lies in the law firm not knowing why it has been a good month or why it has been a poor month. They have no control over their analytics. In other words, medium-sized firms don't know how many cases they need to settle, how many cases they need to close, and what their net attorney fees per case need to be profitable. They get what they can, cash their checks, and repeat the cycle of overspending. Everything is done based on daily routines. There are no set budgets, structures, performance metrics, or other avenues to signal red flags ahead of time. Owners react to the current situation because many of them believe it is possible to plan for the future without accurate data. Track and understand your firm analytics, such as caseloads per staff. The managing attorney ends up working more than anyone else in the firm. They're doing everything themselves, or if they aren't single-handedly doing it, they somehow find a way to involve themselves in every minute detail of the practice. They're not holding their staff or specific departments accountable, and most of the wins and losses present in the firm are chalked up to good days or bad days, when in reality, a streamlined operation does not allow for such inconsistency. This lack of structure and control over the numbers generates tremendous stress for the owners, and many decide that they don't want to grow. They quickly become content with where they are at. All they see is that growth means their life will get harder, and complacency begins to overwhelm. To avoid that excess stress and worry, they decide to limit themselves, and instead of trying to grow the law practice to the next level, they try to maintain the level they are at. Of course, they're making more money than they were as a solo practitioner, but they believe it's not enough to justify all the frustration that accompanies growth. Nothing is predictable, and sometimes success hinges on luck. But sometimes, luck favors the prepared, and many attorneys are just simply not prepared. Everyone's hoping they will get lucky with a contingency case like personal injury or employment. That one case will generate an amazing 7-figure revenue, and they'll be happy until the pain and misery starts over 2 years later. But to truly succeed in this industry, you need to track and understand your law firm's analytics. Here's an example of tracking where your cases are coming from. Large firms, 20+ staff. Large firms often have a combination of problems faced by solo practitioners and medium-sized firms. They also don't have a meaningful, valuable reporting system, and when they do, they lack an individual inside the firm that can analyze their data and give a forecast on the direction, growth, and potential cost reductions. Large firms may have a lot of money, but they also carry a lot of dead weight due to lack of control of their organization. This issue is quite the opposite for solo or medium-sized firms who often have the managing attorney micromanaging everybody's work and not allowing individuals to become an expert in their role through trial and error. At a large firm, they assume everybody is working hard and getting a lot done because the law firm sees success. However, luck and being at the right place at the right time has a lot to play in feeling successful, rather than actually being successful. It goes back to accountability. When this firm gets big enough, there isn't as much loyalty. A firm of 300 employees doesn't have the same level of loyalty from their employees as a solo or medium-sized firm would have. This is a great chart to track division of your firm cases based on the type of cases your firm is retaining and how to balance your resources. Large firms don't explore enough new law practice development opportunities, which limits their growth. They become dinosaurs and lack innovation in their practice. When they come to me, they're looking to expand their practice into other areas or other states. They want to diversify and expand. In all other industries, when a company becomes large enough and has the budget, they start looking at acquisitions and want to acquire a larger piece of the pie. In the legal field, this is a foreign concept. I was one of the first to introduce the concept of buying other firms. This means acquiring solo practitioners, acquiring competitors, and purchasing the contact databases of attorneys who are near retirement. But many large firms are not talking about searching for multiple avenues to expand and grow their firm. Attorneys attempt to create everything from scratch. If you have the funds and network, I recommend purchasing a few smaller firms to grow and utilize their contact database. Traditionally, just like in the medical industry, when attorneys reach the end of their practice, they begin to wind down, get rid of staff, and close the door on new business. After years of blood, sweat, and tears, many attorneys feel content with their public service and forget that they have built a goldmine of client-attorney relationships, many of whom will need to find new attorneys to trust. In other industries, that doesn't happen. Company owners don't think about retiring. Instead, they try to position the company for acquisition and capitalize on the relationships they've built over the years. Another problem in big firms is that innovation in their practice becomes extremely difficult because the mindset and the culture are not there. Any new ideas get rejected, with several key members resisting change and surfing on their current success. Another important thing to keep in mind when building a large firm is acknowledging that you will have a higher cost per case in comparison to medium or smaller law firms. The reason being that as law firms grow and they increase their revenue, money becomes less of a worry, and attorneys are willing to shell out large sums of cash to continue acquiring cases. For example, if the cost to acquire a new client is $1,500 in a medium-sized firm, that same acquisition could cost $3,500 in a large firm because they can afford it. Because large firms are not as desperate, nor are they living on as tight a budget as small firms, they don't look at cost as closely as their smaller counterparts. Every time they retain a new case, they become content, but they don't calculate what their CPA, cost per case acquisition, is, what it takes to settle that case, or how many cases they need to settle in a year to maximize profits. Larger firms become sloppy with their numbers as they start to ignore monitoring performance metrics and disregard their standards. I always tell these clients that even if you have millions of dollars in the bank, it doesn't mean you can buy dollar bills for $1.50. You used to want to buy dollar bills for $0.85. Now you're willing to get them for $1.50. What changed? Your account balance while everything else stays the same? Staffing problems. Large firms believe they have the correct numbers in place to make the right decisions, but within the legal industry, that skill set is not common. So owners hire a COO, a CFO, a CEO, or a CTO from other fields like finance, insurance, or medical to do the numbers. But just because they were successful in other industries doesn't mean they understand the law practice. So they try to run a law practice like a mortgage company, but the metrics don't match. In most other law practices, a CFO or a CTO from one industry can move to another industry and get the same types of results. The same strategies that work in those industries don't necessarily work in a law firm. So this creates a major shortage of highly skilled financial operators in the legal industry. In fact, staffing is a major challenge across the board for the solo firm or for the 500-plus staff firm. There isn't a week that goes by where an attorney doesn't ask me where to find specialized individuals to help them with their firm. When they finally find someone, they have trouble keeping them around because if that person is good, other companies will come in and sweep them away. I've devised an approach based on the high-tech industry to prevent such situations, and you'll encounter about it as you continue with the training.